but we're going to start with Detective Comics 572, and I love sitting down and finding out that it's going to be a 60-page book when I thought it was going to be 22.
Hey, I warned you.
It's always a good time. Well, I mean, I know technically you warned me, but I'm counting that moment as the same thing.
Yeah, but you didn't have the actual fear of getting halfway through and going, hang on a second. This feels like it should be the end, but somehow it's not.
Didn't the fact that it said chapter 1 at the start not throw you
No,
off?
it did, because there was chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then there was the interlude, shall we call it, I think?
Interlude. I think there was 3 chapters in the interlude, because there was a Plastic Man story before the flashback with Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, you might be right. So it was when we got to that interlude that I went, okay, I'm ready for this to be done now. Not that it's bad, but just like in terms of page count, I'm like, oh, there's still like half the issues to go.
It's a weird one, because it's a I mean, I say it's an anthology. They're actually all connected. It's technically one big story, just kind of split into chapters, but where it's focusing on various detectives of DC's past, with Slam Bradley kind of being the main focus. But obviously you got Batman and Robin running around, Plastic Man shows up, and then eventually, despite the fact that he should be, if he's alive, 140 or whatever he is, Sherlock Holmes appears at the end, who's been guiding them this whole time.
Because it's the 50th anniversary of Detective Comics, which is why they're doing all the detectives.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense. And it's just funny because we think of Detective Comics being 80 years old now, which or give or take.
Well, it is.
It is, yeah. But it's just weird to like be reading this. Go, oh yeah, that's right. That's just like 30 years ago. This is about 50 years at this point.
Yeah.
So that is a bit on the strange side. So there's a lot of pages here. Normally I'll look through the book and I'm going to do it a bit quicker with this one because
we'll be here for an hour otherwise.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. But to sum it up, basically there's a hidden Sherlock Holmes story, and we have the descendant of Watson, like his great-granddaughter or whatever, and we have the descendant of Moriarty, who's after this hidden story. The interlude with Sherlock Holmes is the hidden story that actually happened, because obviously they're operating under the context that Sherlock Holmes was a real person and all the stories were written by Watson, right, which is the fictional like context of Sherlock Holmes. So of course there's going to be one nutcase in the comments and it's like, what, they are all real, what are you talking about?
We don't have any of those nutcases, do we?
I haven't noticed them yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, you've got someone coming to Slam Bradley as the PI, and it sort of starts the trail, and he's protecting someone, and it leads to him looking around all these Irish pubs. It leads to going to London at the end after the wraparound, after the chapter with Sherlock Holmes in the past, all that stuff. The Sherlock Holmes story basically boils down, or the whole thing basically boils down to, is that there was an attempt on the royal family.
The Queen.
Was it the Queen back in the day as well? It's definitely the Queen in present day.
It was a Queen then, yes.
Well, so the Queen from the present day part at the end was recognisable. It was clearly based on the actual Queen. And basically, this guy came to Sherlock Holmes and was like, "This is weird. I'm forgetting these things. Like, I've been told that I did this and did that, but I didn't." And Sherlock Holmes ultimately figures out that that's because there's a doppelganger who's replacing him, and the reason why someone's replacing him is because he's got access to the Queen during this ceremony, and they're going to try and assassinate the Queen. And at the end, in present day, Moriarty's going after the Queen, because the Queen got this book gifted to her by the British public, because the British public are so thankful for the monarchy and the royal family. And
sounds completely. Actually, I was going to make a snarky comment, but I'd buy that happening. There is a very sizable section of the public who does absolutely feel that way.
I don't get it. I don't have anything against the royal family necessarily, but I don't necessarily give a shit either.
No, me either, but there is like I said, there's a sizable amount of the public who absolutely would have this sort of reaction, so it actually feels plausible.
Now, it is Mike W. Barr writing the story. I've not mentioned the artist because it's a different artist for each chapter. It tells you at the start of each chapter which one. Alan Davis has been doing a lot of the detective recently. That is on one or two of them, but we have other artists in for some of the other ones. I will say I did quite enjoy the Plastic Man inclusion.
Elongated Man.
Sorry, Elongated Man. Oh, forgive me. See, I'm tired. I told you. But no, Elongated Man. He's like spying on the home of Sherlock Holmes. Baker Street, and waiting for someone to strike. I enjoyed the actors and like sitting in there, and Moriarty. I'd say Moriarty. descendant of Moriarty coming in and
I mean, his name's still Moriarty.
I mean, okay, technically, but you know what I mean. But he's not the Moriarty.
Yes.
He is called Moriarty. He is a Moriarty, but he's not the Moriarty. Like I just said,
sounds accurate.
I just said Moriarty more times in 60 seconds than I have in the last 5 years. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of like actually like because it's not a very Batman issue, right? There's only a little bit of Batman in this. This is 60 pages, and there's maybe about 5 pages of Batman.
There's a little bit more than that. Maybe 10.
It's not far off though. I mean, even in the present day section, so much of it's separate, and it's not so much that I need to have it be Batman, but you know, we have Sam Bradley, and I get why we're using Sam Bradley because he goes all the way back to the dawn of DC Comics, and but the Sherlock Holmes side of it is interesting to me. Like, I mean, are you aware of Sherlock Holmes in any way ever been associated with Detective Comics? Obviously, he's the world's greatest or most well-known detective, but
yeah, I'm not familiar with any prior association, but it makes sense. It doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere. It feels like it's a sensible choice if you're going to use a famous detective, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. There's something to me, they just like mixing in Sherlock Holmes and trying to like, because obviously Sherlock Holmes is public domain, so anyone can use them, right?
It's bizarre how long it's been public domain, isn't it?
But what gets me is almost the hubris of trying to tie in this famous detective, like the most famous detective on the planet, essentially, and tie it into this comic book because of the title and because it's like focused on detectives. Something about it just strikes me as odd when you could just make it about DC Comics detectives and it'd be fine.
You could. I think the idea is supposed to be all these detectives in DC are kind of inspired by Sherlock Holmes, and like, you know, the idea of, okay, when most detectives in comics are kind of inspired by the Sherlock Holmes in a literary route.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think if this was like a random thing celebrating Sherlock Holmes' 100th birthday or something like that, and it was like, hey, this is a Sherlock Holmes DC special, and this was the plot, the exact same plot, I'd be like, fine. I think for the 50th anniversary of Detective Comics, I think Batman investigating an old case of Slam Bradley's would make way more sense from a you know, like their own legacy point of view.
Sure, I'm not.
Because they're celebrating Detective Comics here. They're not celebrating detectives.
No, I get that, but I mean, it works to introduce still, you know, some of their biggest detectives that they have. You know, we have a little bit of Slam, a bit of Batman, a bit of Elongated Man. You know, they're all there, and then throw in Sherlock Holmes just for good measure, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the focal point of the whole thing. And then, of course, it ends with old man Sherlock Holmes, who's still alive in 1987, sort of winking at them and being like, no, I'm going back off to Tibet, where I've been kept alive on a really healthy diet, and monks are all keeping me with fresh air and something or other.
Royal jelly.
It was a really, really weird ending, if I'm honest.
It's bizarre, but I kind of enjoyed the issue as a whole, though.
It was a bit long-winded, but it wasn't bad. Like I didn't like comparing it with Detectives been recently. This was kind of an interesting change of pace. It was still kind of the same style. Like when Batman and Robin were around, it still felt like Batman and Robin from the previous Detective issues, for the most part. But it did feel like this was just going for a pulpy sort of one-off thing, and as a result, it did kind of work a little bit better. But you know, 60 pages.
Little bit much. I'm not, you know, disagreeing with that.
Not bit much. What are you giving it?
I'll still give it a 7, I think.
Yeah, I'll much slightly longer with a 6.5. Like, I think it's perfectly readable, but it's one of those things where, like, okay, we've got a list of comics to read. This is 60 pages. Like, and it's fine. It's not like knocking me off my seat or anything like that.